This week, is the global economic order unraveling? America's allies are questioning its role in the post-World War II system. But is Washington stepping back from global leadership?
Trump's tariffs have reignited the debate about whether the U.S. is stepping back from the very world order it helped create.
My sense is that Chinese leaders see it as both an opportunity and a risk. Some of the things that the Trump administration has done and continues to do are, frankly, a dream come true for Beijing. The Trump administration is very unpredictable. For example, when Trump talks about Venezuela, how many times did he say the word oil? It doesn't seem to be about restoring democracy to Venezuela. From a Chinese perspective, the U.S. has shown its true color. Not that long ago, the big concern was China might have designs on Greenland and absorb it or exploit it or take it over somehow. And fast forward to today, the biggest concern, of course, it's the United States. So it's a crazy world. Any conflict or any further military action by the U.S. Against Iran could lead to escalate into horizontally or vertically, and that's probably not a good idea. The Chinese don't want to get sucked into any wars because wars are bad for business. China is not intent on disrupting, destabilizing regions or fomenting conflict. It's bad for business.
Let's start from the U.S. foreign policy, especially under Trump. So I always think of this, but I want to ask it from you, as your expertise is on China. My first question will be this: do you think, what do you think? Does China perceive this, whatever the Donald Trump is doing with the U.S. foreign policy, which is totally, undermining the global order? Not I only believe, but many other experts or geopolitical analysts, they believe that Trump is, undermining global order through the withdrawal of the U.S. from 66 organization, then making of, Board of Peace Committee, kind of a replica of, United Nations. So I wanted to know this from you. Do you think China perceive this as a opportunity or risk? Because China, China always try to become a, China is a emerging power, and China, I want to, know this, if China see this as opportunity or a risk.
I think it sees it. My sense is that Chinese leaders see it as both an opportunity and a risk. It's an opportunity because some of the things that the Trump administration has done and continues to do are, frankly, a dream come true for Beijing. I think it's hard for them to believe that the U.S. is actually, American leaders are actually doing things that help China and undermine U.S. power and influence around the world. It's a risk because, in a nutshell, I think Trump administration is very unpredictable.
Yeah,
and it's hard to anticipate or know what to expect from the U.S. And so this is a problem for Beijing, which much prefers predictability and continuity. So so they're thrilled. In bottom line, they're thrilled that this is things that are happening are benefiting China, but still concerned about the unpredictability and erratic nature of Trump administration.
But do you think, in the previous era of Joe Biden, China was considered to be the, a threat to U.S. national, U.S. always considered China as a major threat. But do you think Trump has reduced the level of threat because U.S. is mostly engaged with, other powers, mostly middle powers, if you take the example of Venezuela, Iran, don't you think that China is, they pursue better Trump better than other better Trump's precedents?
Well, in the sense that I think the Chinese leaders are saying to themselves and saying to other people, aha, we knew it. This is the U.S. is showing its true colors. They say, U.S. officials talk about human rights, they talk about U.S. values, democracy, but really it's all about power. It's all about taking resources. And so with the Trump administration really ignoring or paying almost no attention to human rights, democracy, then and explicitly saying, for example, when Trump talks about Venezuela, how many times did he say the word oil?
Yeah.
It's not about. It doesn't seem to be about restoring democracy to Venezuela. So this is this. As I said, this reinforces Chinese thinking that the U.S. leaders tend to talk about things, but it's really about values, but it's really an excuse to interfere in other people's, other countries and make the U.S. sound more moral and righteous than other great powers. But what you've seen over the last year, the first year of the Trump administration, it just it seems very inconsistent with previous administrations. But again, from a Chinese perspective, the U.S. has shown its true colors. And so that's reassuring. Going back to getting more specific, that the U.S. operates like your typical great powers or great powers, of a few centuries ago, which is about spheres, developing and maintaining spheres of influence. So staying in its own in the Western Hemisphere. You mentioned Venezuela, of course. Greenland is, making threatening threats about taking over Greenland. So this is sort of standard 19th century great power activity, and to that extent, Chinese leaders may find something positive to take from that, because by that logic, then China has its own sphere of influence that it claims, and that it would expect the U.S. and other external powers to stay out.
Yeah. You are talking about Taiwan.
Yeah. Well, Taiwan and other, but especially Taiwan, yes.
Okay. South China Sea, so the islands that the Chinese claim its own territory. So, what do you think about Chinese perspective towards Greenland? Do you think China is taking this as a normal, or China is serious about this?
Serious about? Well, I mean, it's crazy, and when I say funny, I don't mean laugh funny. I mean it's very sad, actually, and you can cry or you can laugh. I prefer to laugh. But not that long ago, the big concern was about that China might have designs on Greenland and absorb it or exploit it or take it over somehow. And fast forward to today, the biggest concern about who has aggressive designs on Greenland, of course, it's the United States. So it's a crazy world. So I think on the one hand, China is quite happy to paint the U.S. in a negative light and reinforce that. But on the other hand, Greenland is geostrategically important. It has, a lot of, seems to have a lot of rare earth minerals. So it's also a prize or a wealth of resources that if the U.S. controls it or occupies it, then those resources are not available to other great powers.
Yeah, but China still holds the majority of the rare earth metals.
Well, yes, not necessarily all, but they do. What they do have is the best or the most significant capability
Yeah,
to
which
refine them.
military
And
weapons, which is used in most sensitive weapons.
yeah, and so it's partly about actually possessing those rare earth minerals, but it's also having the capability to refine, to
Mm,
extract them and refine them and use them in the ways you mentioned.
yeah, but coming I want to ask you one very different question, but it's related to great power politics. We were always taught as a student of IR when I was doing my graduate, we were always told this from many scholars that US is sort of using India against China, like US is investing in India to against China so that India become a more powerful power than China. But what happened to this argument? Like everything suddenly they fade, everything is faded away. Trump is not giving no more political weight to India if we are talking about in terms of China. So what do you say about this? Why the US, especially under Trump, they are ignoring Indian their influence.
Yeah, well, it's one of those. I was in India last September for a conference about China, and I was commenting to colleagues at the conference that it's crazy that Trump. It's one of the few countries where Trump was actually quite popular as a leader was India. But what he's done since becoming president has significantly eroded that popularity, because just like India has been a friend of the U.S., partly for the reasons you mentioned, but what the Trump administration has done is attack, punish, threaten, coerce American friends and allies, as well as our adversaries or rivals. And so it's very unstrategic. So I think what explains it. The Trump administration is very much very focused on tactical issues, and their playbook is very one-dimensional. And the most frequently used and sometimes the only instrument used begins with a T and ends with an F. Tariff, and he seems to love tariffs. And but they can be useful as a tactic, but tariff is not a imposing tariffs is not a strategy, especially when you do it not selectively, but you slap tariffs on almost all your trading partners.
There is one argument in this that Russia and China, they are supporting Iran. That's why Iran is so passing every day comments that it's like going in a war with the US. It's not a big issue for them.
Yeah, I honestly don't know, but I would say that I think there's real concern that there could be any conflict or any further military action by the U.S. Against Iran could lead to escalate into horizontally or vertically, and that's probably not a good idea. That said, Iran has shown that its military or defense capabilities are much weaker than we thought. I think that they don't have they have feet of clay. sad. It doesn't mean they can't cause a lot of problems and destruction and devastation to their neighbors and in the region and beyond. But I don't think that Iran is as dangerous or potent a threat that as it was previously considered.
But Iran at least can, they can, prevent the supply chains in the Strait of Hormuz, which is a
Yeah.
major setback for the US.
Yes. Yeah, they can certainly do things that disrupt global trade and make problems for the US and other countries. Yes.
So what's Chinese, what China is, like, what do you think about China's perspective on this? If there is an attack on Iran, so what China will do? Do you think China will take more neutral stance?
Yeah, I don't think the Chinese don't want to get sucked into any wars, and a good example of that is their position on Ukraine. I think they're aligned with Russia, but they're not an outright. They're not an ally. They're not happy with Russia intervening. They're not happy that the war is continuing because wars are bad for business. China is not intent on disrupting, destabilizing regions or fomenting conflict. It's bad for business. So going back to Iran, China doesn't want to see a war in the Middle East. They don't want to see Iran be too disruptive, and China has some leverage with Iran. So I would think they are trying to use it to prevent or persuade Iran that not to do the kinds of things that you mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah. But what do you think? Does Beijing fears most from the US military power or the US alliances in the Asia, like with South Korea, Japan, and Australia?
I think that definitely China's concerned about that, and they regularly criticize the US for having a so-called Cold War mentality. Which and maintaining this alliance network, and from a Chinese perspective, they say, why do you need these alliances? Who's the enemy? And of course, they think the enemy is them. The U.S. considers China an enemy. So yes, it's concerning. And even though China doesn't do alliances, right? It doesn't. It condemns the U.S., criticizes the U.S. for having these alliances. China has what they call strategic partnerships. Some of those strategic partnerships have alliance-like characteristics, like with Russia, perhaps honestly even with Pakistan. But one of the differences is even though China may have de facto or quasi-alliances, they don't. The Chinese military doesn't have the same level of interoperability, that the U.S. does with its allies. So I think, in a sense, China feels threatened by these U.S. alliances, but they're also envious of these alliances because it would be nice for China to have that level of, the military exercises we've seen, for example, between China and Russia. Most of them are relatively small scale, and it's more about coordination than actual interoperability.
But if you are talking that US and China, they are doing joint military exercises, but at the same time US is undermining its traditional alliances, especially with the NATO member. So what do you think about this? Do you think this will give an edge to China?
Well, I'm sure China's quite happy about it, along with Russia, of course. So it's hard to say where things are going to go, but we know that I mean it's pretty clear that transatlantic relations are strained, and so NATO is under stress in a way that it hasn't been um, for many years, and from within, not from an external threat. So I think we're a long way from the NATO becoming irrelevant or a split or the end of NATO, but it's definitely it's it's certainly true that the alliance is going through a very rough patch right now, and we don't know where. It's hard to say where it's going to end up. I don't. At the end of the day, it will probably survive, but because all parties, especially the U.S. and its European alliance partners, recognize that they really need each other, even if they have serious disagreements and arguments. At the end of the day, the relationship is they're stronger together. So I suspect we'll work this out, but I don't think we've seen the end of the upheaval and turmoil. And one indicator will be how the issue of Greenland is resolved,
So
or not.
yeah, so I have one scenario for you. Imagine if the global order is, like undermining by the US. So do you think China is ready to, take the lead to like design a new global order? If China is, what do you think? How would the new world order will look like?
It's a great question, and I, a number of people, experts, think that China has a plan to take over the world and take supplant the U.S. as the global hegemon. They may do, but my assessment is they don't. So I don't think China is ready for prime time. They're not ready to supplant the U.S. and they don't want to. So, I call China, great power or superpower light. Obviously they're one of the most powerful, influential countries in the world, world's second largest economy, world's largest trader, and they have a very significant military capability, both conventional and nuclear. But they're not ready, and they're not willing to pay the price to play, play the role of the world's policeman, in essence. So what does that mean? I think it means that if the U.S. continues to step back and maybe focus, as we were saying earlier, focus on the Western Hemisphere, its own sort of sphere, a sphere of influence in North America or the Americas, then who replaces? Who steps into that vacuum? I think it may be middle powers. But it may be no one. And so I don't think it's going to be China. I mean, China will maybe take, like what we were saying earlier, be opportunistically increase its influence and power in its own neighborhood. But what about the rest of the world?
There is.
Go ahead.
So to support your argument, there is just one recent example, the deal between India and which they called mother of all deal. So their deal was happened without US. So middle powers, and they can come and they can shape the world if they want.
If they can cooperate, because as Prime Minister Carney of Canada said, in his famous speech at Davos, that you've got to work together. I mean, one middle power is very limited in what it's able to accomplish, or the influence, or the it's able to exert. but united, a number of middle powers can be have collectively can have much more influence and bring more resources to bear.
Yeah. Dr. Andrew Scobell, thank you so much for enlightening us and giving us your lexicon on such a very pertinent topics on global politics. It's very nice to have you, and I hope that we have more discussions like this in the near future.
Well, thank you. It's been enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you.